Hi, Chad. You're muted.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. So see some folks hopping on. We're going to give everybody obviously a few more minutes before we get started. We're a few minutes early.
Okay, perfect.
You know, for those of you already waiting and chat, so far there's only 4 folks in the audience. So depending, we'll give everybody a couple more minutes to hop on since we're a few minutes early. But I think if the attendee attendance is pretty low, we might just go straight to questions just to see if we just go that route. So we'll give folks maybe a minute or two to hop on, but we can see if we want to do the whole presentation or if we just want to answer what specific questions you all have.
Yeah, it might be good with a smaller group just to let them answer or ask questions, and we can be right on it.
Yeah. Looks like we'll give it another minute. Well, my clock says 7:01. Obviously, we won't maybe, we might start a little more casually here. This is the webinar format, so it's not as interactive as we would have if we had set it up as a meeting structure. But we do have a presentation that we're happy to share, but I think since I only see 5 folks in the audience, if any of you want to just start with questions, maybe with what you were hoping to learn tonight, we can start that way, I think, before we go into kind of the whole entire overview. So if any of you want to raise your hand, we can do that. We do have recordings of this same presentation on our website. So, but we could just go straight with questions. I see David. I'm going to allow you to talk, David. You'll have to unmute on your end, and then you can go ahead.
Good evening. First of all, thanks, Lisa, for answering my email from yesterday.
Sure.
Your first day back in the office. I appreciate that.
No worries, thanks.
The question that I have is, I forgot to submit something on my permit, and if I decide that I would like to have a heated bathroom floor, how much can that be revised during the build process, or when can I know whether or not that's possible or not?
Good question, David. So on minor items like heated bathroom floors, you know, we really don't go in the plans that detail. to determine which bathroom floors are heated and which aren't. So a lot of it, if you decide to do heated bathroom floors, and I'm guessing it's probably going to be electric, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, on that end, just go ahead and do it, and it will just be subject to field inspection by the inspector.
Okay.
Where it would be a little bit different is for somebody that had a boiler system and they were heating the floors versus they weren't heating the floors. They went from forced air to a boiler. It might be a little bit different, where they would have to change the manual J, D, and S around for mechanical system, but something little like that, just go ahead and do it, and we'll just inspect it. We'll work with your electrician to inspect it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, sure thing.
Any other questions, David?
No, not right now. Maybe
Okay.
later on.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, any other questions from anyone who's on tonight? There should be a raise hand button down at the bottom of the screen. I see Bruce raise your hand. Go ahead, Bruce.
Hi there. Thanks for being with us tonight. We're
Sure.
pretty early in the process for permitting for us, so I don't have any specific questions, but I guess in general, what are the things that you've learned in the last couple months or so that can be communicated to us that maybe weren't communicated to us previously? What's the gotchas we need to be aware of?
Okay, yeah, there are some of those for sure.
It's only an
yeah.
hour call though, right?
Yeah, there aren't that many, but there are some gotchas. Yeah. I might let you want to go first, Lisa, as far as
Sure.
the different items?
Yeah, I think if you're, so my first question would be, has your architect or your builder already submitted a permit? And if they have, well, I guess I'll let you answer that first. Has your architect or builder already submitted a permit? Do you know?
No, they have
No.
not.
Okay, so if that's the case, we really encourage kind of those architects who aren't familiar or whoever's preparing your plan set to maybe calendar. We have a 30-minute meeting that we're happy to schedule with you just to go through the specific questions that you might have, just to make sure we're not missing anything. But generally, first-time applicants will maybe not fill out the fixture count form correctly, and a fixture count form is where you're going to itemize all of the water fixtures in the house related to plumbing and water pressure. So folks who haven't filled out that form before, it's not really intuitive. So I think that's one where we're happy to just walk through it with you, because the problem is if you submit and you've counted it incorrectly and maybe you have one too many bathrooms, that triggers an additional tap fee charge. That's a pretty expensive decision point to make. So I think tap fee fixture count form, I'm happy to go through that with you. I think the height calculations are another one where folks don't necessarily show us correctly how to illustrate height. We have some example plans for grading and things out there, and I can share with you more specific ways to show. But I really think if your architect and your builder haven't submitted, it's probably good to submit or kind of sit down with us and go through and make sure you're all on the same track. I know Chad probably has some other tips though too.
Yeah, so some of the gotchas. Some of the gotchas that we're seeing from the field is, and it depends on the energy code that you're going with. Do you know which route you're planning on going? If you're going the 2018 or the 21 or doing a passive home?
I think we're going to do it 2018.
Okay, gotcha. There's a little less gotchas with that one. So just so you're aware that if you just decide to go the 21 path, the house has to be what we consider electrified. Okay, meaning that even if you have gas appliances, and there's a lot of urban legends that say that you can't have gas appliances. We do allow you to have gas appliances, even on the 21 net zero home. But once you jump over into the 2021 energy code, the way it's set up is that even if you have gas appliances, you have to run electric to those locations. Okay. So you'll be running electric to, if you had a gas range, you'll be running electric to the range oven, which has like a 30 amp service. Then you have 2 EV charging stations for your cars that are required. So those are 2 40 amp services. So what I'm getting at is on the 2021, you'll have to size the panel coming into the house like it's a full electrified home. And that means that your panel size, most people have a 200 amp service panel on their house right now. But with the electrification, unless your electrical engineer can prove otherwise, you'll have to jump up to probably a 320 amp service, okay? Then where this also affects somebody is if they're doing the net zero, they have to calculate it out for, even though they're not using all the electricity, they have to calculate it out for the solar system that's on their home for a trade-off. On that trade-off too, sometimes these homes aren't big enough to offset everything with solar on your roof. So you'll have to go to the remnants of it, or the difference, you would have to go to a solar farm. And then there's a 15-year contract is what we're looking at on that. So those are some of the gotchas. With the 2018, you're still allowed, depending on the size of the house, you would probably be fine with a 200 amp service. And it's one of those routes too that you will not get the full benefits of the XL rebates. You won't get 100% on the use tax coming back. You'll get a portion of that, but you're able to always go above code. So, right now it's R49 in the ceiling under the 2018, but if you wanted to do an R60 on the roof, do better appliances and what code says, you can do that as well. And you won't need to electrify everything. The other gotcha is it's more for the geotech reports. Depending on where your home's located, we do have coal mines under portions of the city, and they just need to acknowledge that it's kind of an owner beware. Hey, you're building a $800,000 home. Owner beware that there are some coal mines in certain areas and you may have some subsidence issues. So that's a little bit of a gotcha as well. But going under the 2018 code, you're in pretty good shape. There's not a lot of gotchas. I don't know if that helps, Bruce.
No, that's a good general picture. If we go with a production builder, like say Boulder Creek Neighborhoods, is this burden going to be of doing the permit filing? Will they be doing most of that since they're probably pretty experienced, or is that still something that falls on the homeowner?
So on that, you have an option. You as a homeowner can actually pull the permit and have the general contractor work with you. Most people go with having the general contractor that's building the home pull the permit. The only downfall I can see on that is if you don't have a good relationship with that builder. The person that pulls the permit is the owner of that permit. So say that you have Boulder Creek pull the permit and you have a falling out with them. They're still the owner of the permit, and they kind of control that unless there's an agreement that's reached between you and them that they will relinquish it to you, and then you can assign another contractor on that. So just, kind of beware on that whoever pulls the permit is actually the owner of the permit, even though it's for your property. They're the ones that paid for it. They have to relinquish it to another contractor if you have a fallen out.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah. So, but very seldom that happens. Usually we see that on the smaller remodels. and not somebody that's well established in the community. You know, they come up from southeast Denver, southern Denver, and they're doing a remodel on the basement, and there's some discrepancies, and that's usually where there's some problems. But usually, if you stick with a local builder that's, you know, doing other homes, usually we don't have that problem. But you know, there's always the exception, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any other questions for now, or we will hop over to someone else? All right. We'll switch over to Dominic for now. Dominic, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention for people who don't know, you said that if you go over the fixture limit, the water fixture limit, the increase in prices is large. That amount is like $40,000 or $50,000. So it's hard for people to imagine that kind of number just from the descriptor large. So
Sorry,
I just wanted
good
to let people know
clarification.
that.
Yeah, just shy of
Um,
$42,000. You are right.
Also, concerning your last answer, if you start down the road with one contractor and you know they pull your permit, and for some reason you decide to go with another contractor, I mean, they can transfer that the permit to you. I mean, your answer sounded like there's kind of an animosity between the owner and the builder, but I mean, can you, like, I don't know, have a amicable transfer of that permit?
Most of the time there is, but keep in mind, you know, as the building code official, I see the worst of it sometimes, where there is not an agreement that the contractor wants to be paid for a certain amount of work that wasn't done, and will not relinquish the permit to the owner. And there's been times where the owner had to get another contractor, and that contractor had to get another permit because contractor A that started the project would not relinquish the permit unless they were paid. And so it stopped the process. They had to submit plans again under this other contractor because contractor A was the actual one that pulled the permit, paid for it, was kind of the owner of the permit, correct? So most of the time it's, you know, there's an agreement and it goes flawlessly. I'm just giving the worst case situation that if there's a horrible falling out, technically that contractor that pulled the permit and paid for it is the owner of the permit, and may not want to relinquish it for whatever reasons.
Okay. And the question I came with, your answer spurned that question, but you know, I'm still a few months away from my builder applying for the permit, and I have not kept up with all of the happenings with the permit fees and the use taxes and the rebates and the discounts and all that stuff. Can you kind of give a high level overview of that?
Absolutely. So City Council authorized a use tax credit. So when you get your permit issued, from a timing perspective on payment, payment for the permit and use tax is due at the time of issuance, not when you apply. So you pay for it, you know, kind of after we've done all the work for review. So roughly half of the total amount that comes to the city is use tax, and use tax is in exchange for sales tax. So you'll pay use tax to the city, and you may already know this, but for those of you that don't, the purpose of that is so that you don't pay sales tax at point of sale. So say you buy your building trusses in Aurora, you pay the use tax to the city, and that allows the city of Louisville to keep that tax rather than the city of Aurora collecting it at point of sale. So that's kind of how use tax is structured. And so City Council authorized a use tax credit program that, as Chad had mentioned a minute ago, if you come in under the 2018 Energy Code, then you are eligible for a use tax credit that is proportional to the size, that compares the size of the previous home to the home you're building. So if your home was, 2,000 square feet before, and now it's 2,500 square feet, you get 80% of your use tax credit back to you. You can choose to, sorry, and then if you come in under the 2021 code, then you get all of your use tax back, no matter the difference of the size of the home. If you're under 2018 and your homes are pretty close together in size, if they're within 10% of the same size of one another, then you get all your use tax credit back. If they're more than 10%, then you're paying that actual difference. And we look at the size difference of the home. We're looking at gross square footage to gross square footage. So garage, finished space, unfinished basement of both structures. So we're kind of comparing the overall, and we use the best information we have when we are looking at your previous home square footage. So we look at Boulder County Assessor, we look at our permit records, and we just rely on whatever best information we have to come up with that previous home size. If you have information, we can use that. Again, 2021, you get all of it back. And you can elect to either have that credited at time of permit, or if your builder's paying for it and you'd rather get a check mailed to you, then we can mail you a check. So that's the use tax credit program. For now, we have not done any reduction on the building fee side. However, we have been tracking all of our expenses, and we're tracking all of our revenues. And at some point, if revenues for permit fees exceed the cost to operate, then we would consider rebates. So for now, we haven't done anything on that, but we're tracking that. As far as other rebates go, I'm going to give a website here to everybody, and it's rebuildingbetter.org. No spaces, all lowercase, rebuildingbetter.org. And that is a website. It's managed by Boulder County, and it's really intended to be kind of a one-stop shop for all things rebates and incentives that aren't related to the city use tax. So Excel has the major ones, and Excel is offering $7,500 to any building permit that meets Louisville's 2021 codes. So however, whatever codes we've adopted, you get $7,500. Then they have additional tiers of rebates if you meet different energy programs. There's like a next gen program. There's the Department of Energy Zero Ready, and then there's a next gen, and then a passive house. So there's 3 other tiers of rebates that go up to, I think, $37,500 if you build the higher energy efficiency homes. So passive house is the highest tier, and you'll find information on that on the rebuildingbetter.org website. The state of Colorado is providing $10,000 if you go all electric. So as Chad mentioned, the Louisville codes don't require you to do all electric construction. They'll require it to be what we call electric ready, but you can still have natural gas. However, the state of Colorado will give you $10,000 if you don't install any natural gas heating, water heating, or cooking. So I think they're still allowing like a fireplace, decorative fireplace, that you can still get the $10,000. So, and that Rebuilding Better team has office hours or information's on the website, and they can really help you navigate the pros and cons of those. And then what I would say on that is, if you're interested in those incentives, know that the cost of construction for meeting those codes is likely higher, and that's where you can work with your builder to understand your actual cost and how much those incentives offset it. And then it's really up to you if you decide to take advantage of those. There's a few other incentives, like for Mitsubishi heat pumps. There's some solar garden access, things like that, some electrical equipment, I believe, on that website too. Any questions on that, Dominic?
No, I've just been, so behind. That's a good catch up. Thanks.
Sure, absolutely. Do you have any other questions for us tonight?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right, I see another one in the audience who hasn't raised hand yet. If you'd like to, we're happy to take more questions, or if you've already asked a question and you want to chime in again, please feel free to raise your hand. If any of you, I'll just go through a few things real quick too. So let me, I'll just share my screen since you're all hanging on, assuming maybe you want to hear a little bit more with the presentation that we had. I'll just run through a few highlights real quick of a few resources. So,
And anytime that something pops up and you have a question, just feel free to raise your hand and we'll try to, it's a small enough group, we'll try to answer it for you.
absolutely. So I need to pull up the chat. I can't see, I can't keep an eye on the panelist list. So can you watch for hands?
Okay.
Thanks. So this is us, our contact information. You'll find us easily on our website. If you get to under the building department, we have a whole series of web pages related to all things rebuilding. Contact us and meet with staff, I would say. If you're not sure where to start and you have questions, look for these two buttons. We have appointment times we're happy to take, and then we have contact information on there as well. Again, rebuilding milestones, permit preparation, really that's all on you. You're going to be coordinating that with your design professional, permit submittal, which we'll talk about. Then you're under construction, and really that's coordination with your builder and contractor. And then finally, you'll be moving back to your new home. We talked about use tax credits already. One other thing, it does allow a lot swap. So if you lost a property and you bought another property that was destroyed in the fire, you're still eligible. Again, really, you're going to work with professionals of your choice. So we encourage multiple bids, conversations to make sure that you found someone that meets your needs. We encourage collaboration with your neighbors. Talk to them. There's a lot of people already under construction, so you might learn a lot about some of their lessons learned and who's working well for them. There's different types of teams: production builder, architect and designer, general contractor, a combination of these professionals. In addition, you'll need some professional services like a surveyor, geotechnical engineer, and then an energy rater. And again, we can come back to these with questions more specifically. We already talked about rebuildingbetter.org. Lots of information on there. So I'll just touch real quick on zoning. All the neighborhoods have zoning standards. This is things like setbacks, maximum heights, lot coverages, things like that. You'll find all of those handouts and information for each neighborhood on that website. And one thing on that too is we are offering 10% relief from a zoning standard. You'll find the application for that. I would say feel free to contact staff if you have questions on that before you go too far down the permit process, to make sure that the direction you're going to rely on one of these 10% variances that is approvable when you get there. Chad, I'll let you take it.
Okay. So there's quite a few options. I call it the choose your own adventure book as far as energy codes. But as far as the building code, we're under the 2018 International Residential Code. The state's code we have to adopt, it's the 2020 National Electric Code. Fire sprinklers are no longer required. If you do go with fire sprinklers, you do get a upsize meter for free. You just can't go over the fixture counts, even with that upsize meter. Otherwise, it's like it was mentioned, it's $40-some thousand to upsize on those fixture counts. But fire suppression system, you get a free meter and you don't pay the additional charge. Energy codes, this is where it gets interesting. If you stick with the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code, it's actually, the 2018 is the old prescriptive energy code that the city had, Louisville had, and it's different than the International Energy Code of 2018. It was kind of a prescriptive code that we went above and beyond what the 2018 was, and it's pretty close in a lot of ways to the 2021 prescriptive code that you can also build with. The big difference is instead of R49 in the ceiling, you're at R60 in the ceiling. And pretty much R21 in the wall. There used to be a provision for R19 in the basement walls, but under the 2021, it's R21 for walls, exterior walls. and R60 in the ceiling. And then that's where the you have to have the house electric ready as well. That's prescriptive, which is kind of black and white. It's just kind of our values, what you need to do. The 2021 IECC HERS, you can go with a rater instead of a prescriptive code, and the HERS rater will have to calculate the house out before you submit the plans to the building department to be an HERS 50. And basically what 50 is it's 50% better than a normal home that was built 10 years ago. Okay, that's where the 50 comes in. The 2021 IECC with the net zero appendix, that has to be also done with a HERS rating, but it's a HERS of 47. And you also have to offset 100% of your electricity with on-site or renewable energy, which can be a solar farm. The way the code reads, it could even be a wind farm, even micro hydro plants, but it has to be renewable on that end. And if you can't produce it on site, you have to have a 15-year contract with the provider. And the reason why there's a 15-year contract is the thought is within 15 years, Excel will have most of its electricity being generated carbon-free through wind or solar or other means instead of fossil fuels. So that's why there's 15 years on that. Passive house certification. This is where it gets interesting, and because the rebates are pretty high, we do have a lot of homeowners coming in with the doing passive homes. Basically, what that is thicker walls, higher R values in those walls, really energy efficient windows. In fact, these homes are so efficient that the typical manual JD and S for system design, mechanical design does not work. So they have their own rating system that we allow. It's a PHPP certification as far as on the equipment, because the normal equipment, as low as it goes, is still oversizing a lot of the equipment for a passive home. And there's a lot of rebates on that. But as Lisa mentioned too, the rebates that you get don't cover the cost. There's still going to be some cost to you, but you'll have a pretty nice home that's pretty energy efficient as well, and kind of a different design in a lot of aspects, because it takes in the sun in the wintertime, heating the house, and then you have enough eaves over during the summertime to keep the sun from coming in the windows in many cases. So it kind of all computes on that end. So those are kind of your 5 options on the energy code. If you guys are working on it, have questions, I'll try to help out where I can, the best I can. But we do have, there are energy raters out there that can, that specializes in this, and they can help you out a little bit more on it. Any questions at this point? Okay.
So grading, yeah, so lot grading and drainage. So our public works department, shortly after the fire, realized that a lot of these lots would be really disturbed following debris removal, as you've seen with, big depressions in the middle of the lots, and just a lot of, they don't look the same from a topography perspective. And so they're actively reviewing grading plans on each permit just to make sure that the neighborhood's kind of all stitched back together again to reestablish neighborhood drainage patterns, and that you're not negatively impacting your neighbors with drainage from your lot. And so on the website, you'll find a grading checklist. I would make sure that your builder is aware of that, and that they are coming in, meeting those requirements for what we need to see on the grading plans. But for the most part, builders that have come in now for some time know what these are, and we're happy to walk through. We have example grading plans of what meets the requirements on the website, and we're happy to take questions on this, but just know that this is something that we're working hard to make sure gets put back together properly out there. All right, Chad, maybe we can run through this quickly. Fairly
Yeah.
quick. Go ahead.
Okay, so when you submit, or you're working with an architect, we have a checklist online that we're looking for. It really helps if they follow this checklist and make sure that the plans have all those items in there. And the reason why is once we start going through the plan review, we are going to make sure, we want to make sure, hey, we have a scale, we have the height calculations, we have the engineered stamps on the foundation, and the structurals. And this way we don't have to return it back to the architect or the owner if it's an owner that submits the plan, and they work with the engineer architect again to get those specific items on there, because it just takes a while and then it has to be resubmitted. If all these items are addressed up front, we can do the plan review in a pretty timely manner. We're actually pumping them out pretty good right now. And a lot of these architects have submitted, they had some corrections, and they've modified these plans to basically, hey, they come in, we put some stamps on it to say, hey, you got to meet this portion of code, met that portion, because a lot of times they forget to, put what code they're under, different things like that. And so we're just stamping it, trying to get it through the process as fast as possible. And that's why our timeframes are so fast compared to some of the other jurisdictions in the metro area where it takes 6 months to get your plans reviewed. And it's because we kind of just dictate, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, because it's out of the code book that the architect or engineer forgets to do. So just make sure that's on there, and make sure that if you're working with a geotech, that they put that there are mine hazards if you're in an area with mine hazards on, because we don't want to approve a building and without you as the homeowner knowing that there are some hazards underneath the soil, 100 feet down, 200 feet down, whatever it may be. The manual J, D, and S is kind of the design of the system to make sure that we don't over design your heating system or your cooling system, because nothing ruins a heating system or a cooling system faster than if it short cycles. If it's turning on and off real fast, uses a lot of electricity to start that motor up, and also it's bad for it. Versus if it runs a little bit longer, trying to get the house cooler or heat it up, depending on the season, that's better for the system, because it's just constantly running. It's kind of like a car. You stop and go, stop and go. You wear out the brakes and use a lot more gas. Survey for the ISP, LSP, make sure that we have that in place. Grading plan, that Public Works is taking a look at the grading plan, what Lisa went over, just to make sure that, hey, we're draining properly and we're not draining all of the roof or, the discharge from the driveway onto the neighbor's property, that we have a good drain path that's not going to fill up somebody's basement or your basement, from the neighbor's house. Fixture count form, Lisa kind of talked about that. Just make sure that that's correct. If you have questions on it, feel free to ask us. Fire sprinkler plans, those can be deferred. They don't need to be submitted at the time of your plan submittal, since it's not required anymore. The fire district will take a look at those. We'll take a look at them as well. And so if you're planning on doing that, there will be a review from the fire district. And then ownership information. In order to opt out of the energy provisions. So right now, the city of Louisville has adopted the energy code that requires the 2021 IACC with Appendix RC, which is the net zero home. To opt out of that, you'd have to show that ownership that you owned the property before and that you're rebuilding. Somebody that has bought a lot after the fire doesn't get that benefit. They'll have to build to the 2021 IECC with Appendix RC, the net zero home.
All right, so we can just chat through this real quick. So just so everyone knows, the application process is entirely online. You're going to submit for this permit type that you see here, Marshall Fire Single Family Detached. We can help you with this. It's not hard to find. You're going to upload all of your submittal requirements. So we'll have required submittal types like your plan set, your geotech report, your ISP, your grading plan. And so really you can't submit until you have uploaded a lot of these documents. A couple things for folks. These are two key items. Before we can issue the permit, you need to have your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractors added to the permit. So we won't issue the permit until we know who those folks are. We need to check to make sure that they're licensed in the city of Louisville. And the other thing is we don't accept any deferred submittals. So maybe you have everything but your survey and you really want to get started. And we made a decision a long time ago that as nice as that sounds, it really slows everybody down when we can't review a whole permit package all at once. And so really, I think there's maybe two things that we can, maybe a couple things that we can allow out in the field once you get underway. And one of those is fire sprinklers. Chad, are there any other items that really can kind of wait, or is that really it?
That's really it at this point. And then, just touching base for the homeowners that are doing the work themselves. If you're doing the electrical, mechanical, plumbing, you don't have to put down subcontractors. You can do the work under the state of Colorado. You can do all the work yourself if you want to. That'd be kind of crazy in some aspects, but if you wanted to, you could. As far as deferred submittals, it's really just the fire suppression system that at this point. We want everything else up front. So we're not going back and forth with your architect, engineer, design professional, trying to do a partial review, and then everything changes. And a lot of times we're seeing that too, that the cost is there, it's too high, and there's some changes. So we kind of want everything up front. That way it's a full package, even on the resubmittals. Perfect.
Once we look at everything, we'll send you back comments and corrections if needed. One item just to note that if it's your contractor's first permit, we require them to come to a pre-construction meeting with Chad and his team before we issue the permit, so that we can have a conversation with them directly, go through all of the permit requirements, give them a chance to answer questions. So that is required. Permit then will be issued online, and your contractor, you'll be responsible for printing out everything that you need to have on site. You'll get instructions for that. As far as review, go ahead.
Oh, and one of the reasons we're doing that pre-construction meeting is in that burn area, we have about 80 different contractors at this point. That's 80 different ways of doing things, 80 different groups of subs that they use. And that's at this point with the homes that are being rebuilt. And so what we want to do is just have a meeting with you if you're building the home, or your contractor, as far as expectations. The reason why we have stripes on the road, and kind of the time frame, and just kind of courtesy and where to park if the sites get too busy. And so it's just kind of going through that in order to keep civility out there with all the different trades.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's good. Thank you for chiming in. For now, we've been able to maintain our average review time of about 10 days. That's our goal. It's not a commitment that we can, ensure we keep. If we get 50 permit applications in 1 week, we're really going to struggle to get them reviewed in that time frame. But so far, we've been able to meet that goal of roughly 10 days to get you comments. So within that 10 days, it doesn't mean you're going to get your permit issued. It means we'll look at it, make sure that if we have any comments or revisions, then we're going to get those issued to you. If everything's fine, we'll go ahead and get it approved. How that looks a lot depends on how fast then your builder or contractor architect resubmits back to us. Again, the accuracy of what was submitted the first time, and then again, what else is in the queue. So we will be transparent with you if you call about where it is in the process, and you can check the status online as well. Mind map, Chad, you want to just talk through this real quick?
Yeah, so this is kind of an example, and you can find this on the website under the building department. And then I think there's a section as far as permits, and then there'll be a line hazard map. So if you're building in an area that's green on this map, there are lines underneath where you're building. And it really doesn't affect the design too much. It's just more of an owner beware. Because if some owners are like, you know, I'm spending $800,000 on this home, and you're telling me there's a possibility that there could be some soil subsidence. I don't know if I want to invest in that. 99% of the people out there are like, hey, there's homes on it before, we had no problems, we're good. But it's just kind of an owner beware. And just so your engineer and architect is also aware of it too. And if they have any concerns, they, you know, might put the house on footers instead of caissons in the future. So that's what that's about.
All right, you want to go through inspections?
Yeah, so once you get your permit, what we do is just require you to call in for the inspection, or your contractor call in before 4 o'clock the day before that you're having the inspection. And then by 7 o'clock that night, online you'll see that you're scheduled for an inspection and what the inspection type is and who your inspector is with their cell phone number. The contractor can give them a call first thing in the morning. You can give them a call as well and find out what time they're looking at showing up. Inspections, we moved our inspections up to 6:30. Right now that's about 7 just because of daylight hours. But as we get into the summer, we have more daylight, we'll be starting about 6:30 in the morning and we'll end at 5. Somebody's first, somebody's last. So, you know, if your contractor's not ready for the inspection but thinks that he'll be ready later on that day, probably make sure that he doesn't call it in for that day if he's not ready for it, because they may be on the morning part of the inspection. Notifications, they'll go to the contractor unless the contractor puts you down on the permit too as one of the owners that can take a look at it, or if you're, as the owner, you're the one that pulled the permit, you'll get the notifications. There'll also be an inspection record card on the site. We are requiring that the set of plans that are on the site are full size and in color. And the reason why we're requiring it in colors because we're stamping it to fast track it in case the architect and everyone misses something. Some of the bigger ticket items, we just put a red stamp on there that you need to do this instead of going back and forth with the architect or design professional, which takes, you know, a little bit of time. Let me see. Pass inspections. You'll get notified if you pass. If there's a partial inspection, you'll get notified on that as well. We're a pretty small team as far as the inspection department team, and we'll notify you if there's any problems for the contractor. We do certificates of occupancy. We also work with, we understand that there's a supply chain issue. So you'll probably see a lot of the homes that are being built right now have siding on, but they're missing windows and doors and garage doors. It's just a supply issue. We're working with the contractors on that. That's not normal building operations, but in order to get people back in their home sooner, we're allowing them to go that process and just install windows like it's a replacement style on the window, just so they can start working on electrical, plumbing, and get the dry-in items taken care of. So when the doors do come, Yeah, they're not waiting, 6 months for doors and windows on that. And we don't do TCOs, we just do a certificate of occupancy. We will work with you, say that you end up having a budget issue and decide, hey, I can't finish the basement anymore, or I can't finish the upstairs. We'll work with you on that too, to get the minimum code requirements in there so you guys can move in. And then when you do build up funds later on and finish off the basement, or you're ready to finish off the basement or upstairs, you can do that as well at a later time.
Okay, thanks. We talked about this a little bit. So, in addition to partial finishing, phasing of interior, Chad's very familiar with alternative building types. So if you have questions on anything you see here, just feel free to reach out to him, or have your architect or designer reach out to him with more specific questions on some of these alternative building types. And we're back to the end and happy to open it up to any more questions that folks have, if there's any last questions. All right. Go ahead, Bruce. You'll need to, there you go.
Just a minor question on the map that you showed us with the subsidence or the mines. What's the difference between the light green and the dark green?
Depends on the mine depth. The colors vary based on the depth of the mine below grade. And so when you find the map, you can actually click on those areas, and there's a pop-up that will tell you the depth of the mine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the green is about 200 feet, the darker green, and then as it gets lighter into like a yellow, it gets shallower, from what I remember.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you.
An interesting map to play around. Is a lot of history related to the mines.
I've not seen this before, and I didn't know my house was so close to on Mulberry Street was so close to that.
Yeah, we pull that data directly from the USGS. So it's not data we created. It's just sourced from the US Geological Survey. So we believe it to be accurate, but it's not something we created or researched ourselves. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions out there tonight? All right. Well, we really appreciate all of you spending some time with us. Again, please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. We have a recording of this tonight, and we'll post it on the website. So we'll send that out through some of our channels as well for those that weren't able to attend. Take care, everybody, and we hope to see you in the building process soon.
Okay, yeah, see you guys later.
Thanks, everybody.